and podcast here, providing every Saturday morning 8 a.m. and every Sunday morning 9:30 a.m. as well, providing education, networking, and opportunities. So I'm gonna get myself set up here real quick, and we'll get started here in just a few minutes. We're gonna be getting into a nice little subject. Calling in from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Uh, was at a investor summit, like-minded, a lot of fun, uh, and really got into discussing real estate. Had a great luncheon, a dinner event. Please, Mike, Steve, thank you. All right, so we'll get started here in just the next couple of minutes. But down here till this evening, got here Friday, met with a group of investors, probably about 100 people at this event, and great speaking engagements, great networking, just really good camaraderie, and a really lot of enthusiasm. Even with a questionable market here in Florida, really people were just really engaged in opportunity, how to get around difficult uh, environment right now in Florida, and really trying to strategize and scale and grow. It was just really an amazing uh, feeling of energy and passion for the industry itself. So we had a really great time networking. Got a little time to break away with the wife and had some drinks and stuff at the Hard Rock Cafe Casino, which is really beautiful here. But yeah, I mean, it was just a good networking event from a Friday into a Saturday morning. Was there pretty much throughout the day. It was a lot of just really good energy. So I was real happy about that, and look forward to doing some collaboration with Eric at Like Minded Real Estate in the future. I do believe in masterminding. I do believe in networking, and I just thought it was just really good synergies. We had dinner on Friday night and talked about the market, talked about what he was doing and what type of education he wanted to provide for real estate investors along the East Coast, and very like minded as well. And we talked about my schedule, and what meeting with a lot of real estate agents this past week in Maryland, and as well as New Jersey, and then obviously here in Florida. So just a lot of good content and information that I received talking to a lot of real estate professionals this week. I probably talked to several hundred real estate professionals this week, and with the volatility in the market, there's still such a high energy in regards to investing, and how to really get understanding fix to rent and fix to flip and DSCR, and people want to understand how to price their loans out and underwrite their deals. And um, really interesting that the Fed made their announcement with a half a point drop in the rate, and then the Treasury bonds basically said, "Screw you, we're gonna stay still or go higher." So the rates really didn't go anywhere. And the irony enough, if you're in the real estate investment space, you already know that your rates already dropped a half a point in the past couple of weeks before the Fed announcement. The Fed announcement was just to kind of give us a heads up we're in a recessionary environment. Whether they want to clarify and say that it's a recession, the economy right now is tight. Credit's getting a little tight. Banks are very much tight, and the non-banks are kind of taking over the investment space. I pretty much see 70 to 80% of the investment space, single family through four family, and five through say 20, really is going to be taken over by the non-bank environment. So interesting articles this morning that I read over the past week. Some serious short-term rental regulations coming into another big MSA, Chicago. So Philadelphia, now Chicago, basically making it extremely difficult for STR and squeezing that out because of housing affordability and needs for low-income housing as well. That was something that was announced and put out there this past week. Obviously, you had the rate announcement with the Fed dropping the rate about a half a point, but the Treasury, the notes kind of dictated otherwise. Rates kind of stayed still at around 6.15 base rate. So we're still in a good spot from an investor place. I don't think we're going to see a lot of home buying in the fall market. I think we're going to, because none of the values have been coming down drastically. They're being very stubborn. Hotel occupancy is seeing a massive decrease right now, so that's very interesting to see. But I do think the Fed's going to do another quarter point drop in November. But this is all very calculated, and I'm very concerned because people are like, oh, they're dropping the rates. This is great. No, that's not good. The economy is not good. So that people should understand the reason why rates are dropping right now is because the economy is not good. And there's some ranking that I'm going to put out there in the fastest and slowing selling markets. There's some markets right now that are slowing down drastically. Daytona Beach is now at 73 days. Palm Bay, Florida, 67 days on the market to sell a home. Miami, Florida, 84 days. But then you go to Albany, New York, Allentown, and Richmond, it's 9 or 10 days. Then you go to New Orleans or Honolulu, it's like 80 days to get a property listed and sold. In the Midwest, you got Omaha, Nebraska, Spokane, Washington, and Wichita, Kansas, taking only 8 to 10 days to sell a property. So you're seeing changes in the market. One of the fastest selling markets in the country, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 6 days. 6 days, properties are flying off the market. So you really got to kind of understand what is going on and which direction you want to go. Existing home sales are retreating on a medium sales price over the past quarter. So you got some other things you need to look at, and then also home flipping activity has slipped a little bit in the second quarter. So need to watch these things as a real estate investor. And our discussion today is really kind of tying into it. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank MB Capital, which is your unsecured business line of credit program for investors throughout the country. I'd like to thank Lendmark, which is a asset-based lending group where I'm senior loan analyst, providing DSCR, fixed to rent, fixed to flip, new construction, multifamily, and mixed-use products. I'd like to thank Linda Pelagas at Realty 411, a national publication for real estate professionals, as well as national events throughout the country. And she has an upcoming event in LA at the Grand Expo in October. And then I'd like to thank Mr. Yerdal Perkins of Perkatech, who is our social media strategist and architect to the podcast, provides website design, social media strategy and advisory for his clients in the real estate professional space. Please reach out to him. Great guy to have in your power team. So today's discussion, weighing pros versus cons, which real estate method will you adopt? And I just put an article out on Friday. What are the pros and cons of buying and holding right now, right? Steady cash flow are some good pros, appreciation potential, tax benefits, stable in the market fluctuations. Now, some of the cons you need to think about: property management, vacancies, upfront costs. Maybe look at midterm rentals. The pros are higher rents than long term, less turnover than short term. But the cons are more active management, and then there's regulations. You got to be careful about that. So, these are things that you need to kind of be concerned about looking at the pros and cons going into 2025, right? Short term rentals are going through an interesting change of time right now. With regulations coming in, there are high income potential, flexibility of use, tax benefits, but the cons are high management and maintenance needs, local regulations, and seasonability. House flipping, again, timing is everything. If you cannot turn that property around in the market at the right time, you're sitting on the property. And I'm seeing more flippers coming to me, taking their property off the market, renting it, and then allowing you to refinance it at least into a 30-year fix so they can kind of weigh out the market over the next year or two. There's fast profit and there's opportunist ideals in markets that are significant price appreciation or even distressed properties. But again, the hold right now is looking outweighing the flip. So keep an eye on some of this stuff as we put things together. And we'll get to our moderators now. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Joseph Martella. Good morning and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to which methods are you adopting going into 2025?
Hey, good morning, Joe. I'm a buy and hold investor. I've done several BRRRRs and do a little bit of private lending here and there. Also invest in tax liens in the state of New Jersey. So I've been doing a lot of reading on this lately with all the plane rides that I've been taking. And I was reading, I think it was BlackRock that actually established a new real estate fund where they have billions of dollars just sitting on the sidelines. And I saw someone make a prediction that in the next upcoming 10 years, 40% of single family homes are going to be owned by institutions. Because less people can afford houses, and they're talking about a downturn in the market, and that's when all of these folks with the money on the sidelines are going to take advantage of the downturn in the market. It makes sense. I mean, if you start seeing Warren Buffett, you start seeing Zuckerberg, Jamie Dimon, they're all selling stocks. They're putting cash on the sidelines. They're waiting for something big to happen, or at least a downturn in the market for them to take advantage of the sales prices that are going to come. And I agree that's going to come in the future. I have a property that's, we just talked about property management, which could be a con, right? And I have a property that's coming up vacant. The tenant told me that they're moving out, right, with 30 days notice. I just put it on the market, and I put it on the market intentionally a couple $100 less than market rent. Well, I could easily get the market rent, if not more, because the property has a lot to offer than the others that are currently on the market. The intention was I wanted my pick of the litter. I wanted to be able to see who was going to come and who was going to be able to have the income and the job function that's going to be able to support an income in recession. I found someone who runs dispensaries, believe it or not, which is funny on my case for more than one. And I think a dispensary is going to be a recession proof. So, and that was exactly what I was targeting. The funny part is I had someone who's a property manager who called me and said, "Oh, I have a lovely family," and was trying to sell me on getting me to manage my property, which that I'm against. And he said, "You're on the market. We can get market rent." And I said, "I know exactly what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing it. I didn't go into the reasons to educate them, but." A lot of investors, if you're going to get the top dollar on your market rent, which I know that's the goal, but being a couple of $100 below market, it allows you to pick who you want to pick, and the theory behind it, at least my theory, is that it's going to get me the longevity that I need on a tenant that's going to be in that property. So over the long run, I may be losing $2,000 a year on potential income. I'm making a good amount of cash flow on this property as it is, well over $1,400. So, do I really need the extra couple of $100 to squeeze out of them? To where now I'm at market rent, and now they have other options to go, right? And I don't have the pick of the litter, and I don't have the flurry of people that are coming in. I had 25 people interested within a week, and the place is tentatively rented, right? I have an application out, and they have to prove what they're saying. So, I mean, that's my theory on how I run it, and how I'm gonna try to come across recession proof. The other theory that you can have, right, on an income potential recession is just go straight up Section 8 and not take the regular folks whose jobs may be on the line. That's another thing that I had in mind going forward as an avatar for that rental. So that's just a couple of things that I put out there as renting the current property.
So, Joe, I mean, how much of the impact of the 24 election, presidential election, do you think is going to impact the bottom line to housing? What do you think the market dynamics and the consumer confidence looks like going into the election?
I think regardless of who gets in, I don't think there's anything stopping at least the correction in the market. I mean, things are just too high, right? There has to be a ceiling on something. Jobs are not what they claim them to be, right? There are losses. They had an overall net loss of jobs with all the corrections that were made after the headlines that everybody followed. There's a 50% chance of a recession after a 50-point drop, a basis point drop in rates. When the Fed drops the rates, generally that's not a good sign down the road. I don't think, regardless of what candidate gets in, is going to stop what we're facing. because at some point you gotta pay the piper, right? And we've been having a very good run on what's going on. But I do think that if one candidate does get in, you're going to start looking at rent stabilization and or rent control on a federal level. Um, I think you're definitely going to take a look at that. I mean, where the other one was going to be more capitalistic, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm concerned with the market dynamics and the consumer confidence. I don't, even with all this rate change and rates leveling off, consumer confidence is still not there. I mean, you could tell with the investor, the newer investor, they don't know which way to go. They like, I want to try to get into an investment property. I can't afford it. I can't find anything. But then I meet other investors. All they're doing is putting properties under contract. So, like, I don't know what the happy middle is because I think investment opportunities are going to change in 2025. Because of whoever gets into office, that confidence level or that direction is going to change a little bit. But nothing is going to be able to avoid the kicking of the can of the commercial reset that's going to impact the residential impact in time. Correct, Joe?
Yeah, I agree with you. Right. There's some people that are just putting it out there. I mean, if you get a property priced correctly, then by all means, right, do it. I mean, I bought 2 properties this year. When generally I buy 1 a year, right? I bought 2 this year, but if you can negotiate it, everything's on the market for me. Yeah, consumer confidence is not going to increase. I mean, Trump came out with a policy where he wants to reduce credit card fees and put a cap on interest to 10%. That's the same thing the current administration was talking about, as well as Harris. So they're starting to align principles, which makes me think that there's something in the economy that they know that they're just not going to be able to prevent.
Yeah. Good stuff, Joe. Thank you for coming in this morning. So, I mean, as we're looking at this real estate market, what is this real estate landscape going to look like? And for yourself, in your immediate market, are you going to become the out-of-state landlord? Are you going to be a long-distance landlord? Are you going to go into the 5 through 25 space? Are you going to go into 1 through 4? You've done a bunch of flips. You've done a bunch of rehabs. It's your first deal. You're a licensed real estate agent, and you're trying to be an investor now because the NAR settlement lawsuit is scaring you. It shouldn't, but it's scaring you. And oh my goodness, what do you do now? So, I think AI is going to have a lot of influence into this and prop tech. And I met somebody and bragged that I know the prop tech council leader here on the podcast. So, Amy, good morning and welcome. Brief overview: who you are, what you do, and thoughts to weighing pros versus cons. Which real estate method will you adopt?
Good morning, Joe. You're bragging about me.
I was bragging. I know the head of the prop tech council. I mean, come on, man. I got clout.
You do. You have clout for sure. All right, y'all. I'm Amy Palvido. I am the chair of the U.S. PropTech Council. As Joe says, I'm also the founder of a real estate technology data and AI company, and we make digital twins of buildings, and mostly on the commercial real estate side. But I've been a long-time real estate investor. I've been a real estate investor since 2008 when I started buying single-family homes way back in the day, and then I scaled that company. I was a private equity real estate firm and doing projects in 4 states in 2021, developments. And before that, I was a general contractor. So I've had the full gamut in real estate for the last 21 years. I will say I do want to correct some things. I don't think the institutions are going to own 40% of the homes. I kind of disagree with that. I think that what they're going to do is, sorry, I'm out for a walk. I think what they're going to do is, which take BlackRock's approach, because BlackRock doesn't own any homes. What they do is they provide mortgages. So they invest in mortgage securities. They will provide, hard money lending or asset-based lending. They'll do things like that, and they'll have debt funds, but they actually don't own the homes. Now, Blackstone, on the other hand, created Invitation Homes back in 2012, and they do have this kind of dispersed portfolio where they were picking up onesie-twosies in certain areas. But I don't think anybody can do that model. Now that build-to-rent has come to play, I think that that's where they'll be. I think that it's easier for them to kind of manage the performance of their assets if they're all located together. So I think if any institution is going to do anything like that, they'll get into that game where they're doing build to rent portfolios. But that's just my half nickel. All right. So talking about what I'm going to do in 2025. For me, I've gone from buying single family homes to got into the multifamily game, started buying 40 units, and then I got larger units, and I had all those great things. I'm mostly focused on technology, on how technology can help, and I think technology is going to help the most if people are willing to buy it. Is the smaller units where they can't afford to have a property manager. Those people can make more coin if they will implement technology and just do it as a part of the acquisition. So because that's when you get it paid for it, right? So when you go get your loan for your rehab and construction, just have a technology stack as a part of that. And then that way you can manage your asset better. So from applicants and leasing and taking payments and doing maintenance and doing all these other things, you shouldn't have to have anybody sitting at the property, right? If you own a 20 unit or if you own a 5 unit or whatever it might be, you shouldn't even have to have anybody go sit at the property or come visit once a day, right? You should be able to manage that remotely. And I think that's where technology is really going to help folks. Single family homes, there's a lot of technology being introduced there too. So if you're trying to manage your home, there's a lot of new tech coming out, especially if you're willing to invest in it on the IoT side and kind of manage, the things that the tenants never tell you, you can see and get input into. So there's a lot of that too. So that would be my half a nickel.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff, Amy. I mean, listen, I agree with you with the BlackRock. I think they're going to put more money out. Well, I think that's where the article gets a little misconstrued. I think BlackRock's going to lend more money than any bank can do combined in the non QM space. I think Blackstone is going to do a lot of build to rent. They're buying land and they're developing it out and holding these eat, work, and live portfolios, or they're buying portfolio of like finished new construction that couldn't sell and then holding them out for 30 or 40 years in an eat, work, and live environment because people are just not going to be able to afford based on the current. I mean, I have to say the Bidenomics is a complete failure. So you have a failed economy that the government created massive inflation by putting money in trillions outside the country to countries that we'll never see, and now we're kind of like a hollow log and have all these illegal immigration coming in and eating away at our tax base. Affordability is just going to be out of reach for a lot of these individuals where they'll be okay doing the eat, work, and live, and there's going to be rent control, and there's going to be different types of affordable housing mandates in a lot of these new developments and conversions, throughout the country. So I think the AI piece and prop tech is going to be very important for real estate professionals to identify the opportunities for the individuals that can afford to buy. Who is buying and where are they buying? Where are the trends? And how is this going to impact a real estate agent, in their market? Like how do they pivot into the investment opportunities? Like I was in Maryland at the Association of Realtors. I point blank asked the realtors, "Are you investor friendly?" And the ones that cringed, I'm like, "Don't even bother taking my business card because you're not going to work with investors. It's not even worth having a conversation." So, Amy, what's your thoughts with how is prop tech going to kind of help realtors get themselves together post NAR settlement charges? Yeah, settlement lawsuit.
Yeah, I think any realtor who is not actively embracing AI is just going to get left behind by those people who are. You're going to have to become like what we call AI enabled. You're just going to be more productive if you do. I mean, no one wants to. There's people that want answers at 2 a.m. because they just got off of work and that's the time that they're still awake and they can never lease anything or they can never buy anything just because that's kind of their schedules, right? I mean, it could be a nurse, it could be a construction worker, like my son who works for the county. It was a great job, but he gets off at 2 a.m. And so, AI can handle all of that, right? So you don't have to be missing out on people. So if you're not actively embracing AI and having it answer leads for you, or at least the top of the funnel for you, you're just missing out on people who are starting to embrace that stuff. So yeah, can AI do everything? No, it can't do everything.
No.
People still want to talk to a person or leave something. They want to make sure they're not getting frauded. So, you know, but it can do a majority of it, right? So now you can just be more productive, and now you can close more deals because you're just embracing and using AI to do it. And there's a lot of stuff that's actually not too expensive for you to use, and some of it's free. I mean, ChatGPT is free, so
Yeah.
I mean, some of it if you want to pay for the extra stuff you can, but a lot of it is free, and if you just learn how to use it, it's really super cool for you. And you know, there's things like ChatGPT, of course. There's other things like AI. Microsoft's coming out with their Copilot now. It's super useful for me. I use it every day. Sorry, on a walk. It's nice out in Austin, y'all. This morning, they had a motorcycle person coming by. But yeah, so it's that. I mean, it really is. And then so if you want to embrace investing, you know, you have an advantage as a realtor in understanding the market where you're in, and you're going to get first dibs on seeing some stuff, and so you've got that advantage. For you is what you have to learn, and I helped a lot of realtors when I was investing in single family back then. They learned the other side of it, right? You have to manage the contractors. You have to learn how to, yeah, you know, what you can find the deal all day long, but then you got to manage the thing through execution. And some realtors aren't property managers, so they got to learn that stuff too. So keeping up to date with all of that is really going to be helpful, and AI can help there too. Like, I mean, it can point you in the right direction. It can't do it for you, but it can point you in the right direction.
Thank you, Amy. Safe walking there. So, you know, from what I'm seeing here is we're not talking about interest rates right now. We're talking about what is the demand of the opportunity, right? The demand right now is investor play. I'm not seeing a ton of home buyers coming off the market. I don't think. Listen, if somehow we have this $25,000 credit to buy houses, that will only make this all worse. That's coming out of our tax dollars. Okay, you really need to kind of figure out how to get cost of goods down for the average individual to afford to buy their own home. In the interim, you got to loosen where the money's loosening up is in the investor space. There's more non-bank money being provided than for the home buyer consumer. So you need to embrace DSCR. You need to embrace fix to rent, fix to flip, case to case, seasonal to seasonal. It's all about timing when you're buying something like that to flip. Looking at lease options maybe as a creative way getting into 2025. Okay, that might be a very different type of dynamic because now it's allowing somebody to kind of gradually get into that property with ownership, and they'll appreciate that rental a little more. So that the whole idea of creativity of the Section 8 of the lease option might be back a little bit. Maybe, I don't know yet. I'm looking at it because the prices are still very elevated to very stubborn real estate inventory stock, and I don't know. And then you got insurance, which is basically, you know, handicapping the investor right now in states like Texas and Florida. It's really bad. I mean, really, really bad. Justin, good morning and welcome. Brief overview: who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning. Weighing pros versus cons. Which real estate method will you adopt? Justin, going once. Justin, going twice. We'll come back to Justin. No, there he is.
Come back to me, Joe. I'm in here trying to keep my little girl.
It's all good. It's all good. Thank you, Justin. Travis, good morning and welcome. Brief overview: who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion. Weighing pros versus cons. Which real estate method will you adopt?
Yeah, hey, good morning. I'm Travis. I have a real estate brokerage here in the Houston market. Deal a lot with investors, property managers. I'm a property manager. I have properties that are managed by other property managers in other states. So I've been on both sides of the coin there. I can understand why our friend Joe would want to manage his properties himself. I know what it's like to have property managers who it seems like all they do is collect the rent. They don't really, try to help you manage your asset and the things that need to be taken care of. So I get it. But I think if anyway, to just a comment on what he said, if you own properties in an area where you don't live, it's going to be very, very difficult to do it yourself. So I think at that point, you better investigate a good property manager. What is the question, Joe? Are you asking me what am I going to do next year?
Yeah, what are some of your methods that you're going to adopt differently, knowing where the economy is going, where insurance is going, where your own market is going? What are you going to do differently to adopt in the first quarter, second quarter of next year, one way or another? What are you looking at?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, my longer term plan, not even thinking about the economy, is we're going to get out of dealing with tenants. So, a tenant being a normal single family home tenant or an apartment tenant, and going more towards commercial. Focusing more on a business that needs a space instead of a person who needs a place to live, because I don't see the government getting involved in places where businesses are going to lease as much as they want to get involved in what you've been talking about, rent control and all this other garbage. So that's where my focus is going, is learning the different techniques and the different ways that I can combine people's money together so that we can buy larger commercial assets instead of single family homes. That's the way I'm going. When you guys are talking about rent control and all this stuff, which we've already heard the Biden administration say that they wanted to put some kind of rent control on whoever owns more than however many doors it was. I can't remember, but in my experience, it takes away from what America is, right? Anytime, please, somebody who knows when the government got involved and they actually did something good. Anytime they get involved and they try to regulate whatever, all they do is screw it up. And so them even talking about trying to regulate how much you can set your rent for, what are they going to do next? Are they going to go and say, okay, now your interest rate can't be above this, your insurance can't be above that, and your taxes can't raise more than that? It just doesn't make any sense that they limit the revenue without limiting the expenses. You just can't do it. If you tell me I can't raise a rent, this is part of the problem with Section 8, right? And I get why Joe would want to say it's recession proof to a point, because the Section 8 department is going to tell you we're only going to allow you to raise your rent to this, or maybe they won't even allow you to raise your rent every year when the renewal comes due. So anytime you're getting involved with the government, you're playing by their rules. That's my 2 cents on that.
Well, thank you, Travis. I appreciate that. And I agree with some of the things you have to say. I'm adopting a different pattern going into next year because I think property management is going to be on the forefront for all investors next year. I think people are going to depend more upon property management to scale their portfolio more than ever. It's already, when you go to an event now at an expo, there's now more property management booths than lenders. Like that's how it was at the Maryland Board of Realtor Association of Realtor Expo. There was 4 property management companies, and I was the only direct lender in the non-QM, non-bank environment, and there was 2 mortgage brokers. There's more property management presence at an expo for real estate agents or real estate investors than lending institutions. So it's kind of interesting the dynamics where it's all changing. I think the mindset is I'm going to own 50 properties, and I'm going to have a management company offset some of my pressure on the day-to-day minutia. And I think, I'm going to give you a scenario. I'm going to the National Property Management Association Expo in D.C. in February because I need to get in front of these property management companies because they're the ones that are talking to all these landlords. So what's your thought on that, Travis?
Well, my thought on when I hear anybody flocking towards one thing is to go in the other direction. So everybody's going towards property management and nobody's there doing lending. Well, then if it were me, I'd go to lending.
Well, that's why I was the only game in town there, having great discussions with people. But I just find it very interesting the increased presence of property management and maintenance in the past several years than the previous 5, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I couldn't even. Besides, maybe there's people talking about it on YouTube. I know one of the ladies that I follow, she's all about buying businesses in Austin, and I know she talked about property management. So I don't know, man. Anytime people start moving in one direction, I go in the other direction.
Interesting stuff. Great stuff, Travis, and thank you for being on this morning. So, I'm thinking the office space, but like, where is the on-site employment going to be, or the hybrid environment going to be for investors, right? Buying these mixed-use properties. It's a very popular way of going after some of these suburban markets, buying that storefront with a couple of apartments above. You need to understand the lending format to that and what is out there. Okay, because lenders have a concern with the commercial space going empty, but there's a unique opportunity because if you find the right commercial tenant, it's a great asset to hold. Good morning, Steve. Welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, weighing pros versus cons. Which real estate method will you adopt?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So this is Steve. I'm with REI Homepage. I'm a landlord, investor, and I do a lot of education, and I'm getting more into the private lending angle, and of course, read for you as well. I look at what people will need going forward. I definitely agree there are a lot of sectors of commercial that will be growing. I'm looking at self-storage, I'm looking at mobile home parks. But a lot of what I'm looking at right now is affordable rentals, a little bit affordable fix to flip, but mostly affordable things people can rent, because the one thing in a changing environment, possibly recessionary environment, is that people always need a home they can afford. I'm not a fan right now of investing in, at least in my rather low-income area of northeastern Pennsylvania. I don't go for the top end. I don't go for the doctor, lawyer, Indian chief level rentals or builds, because there might be constriction. You get above that, you get to the legacy families. That'll never change. But in the bell curve for us is always going to be in the middle income. What can the warehouse worker afford? What can that crowd afford? Because the one thing that'll happen, it'll be true in a recession, is Amazon ain't going nowhere. We have 5 Amazon facilities in our area. I'm also personally sliding into providing tools to other real estate investors. We run a property management company. We run other things to help investors grow. So, if you are looking at land purchases, for me, it's affordable rentals, self-storage, mobile home parks, other types of commercial as well. But office makes me a little scared. Retail makes me a little scared personally. Maybe I'm just not experiencing it. But really helping other people, because the one thing I don't see going away is the interest in getting into real estate. So helping people with the tools they need for that. That's why I created REI Homepage.
Great stuff, Steve. Thank you very much for that. And I've known Steve now a little bit. He runs a great event up in Mountaintop, Pennsylvania, and also the Northeast Pennsylvania area. Definitely reach out to him. What I'm hearing so far is what's the game plan and the exit strategy to each property that you're acquiring? Like, what is the big game plan? What is the financial feasibility to the deal? Okay. Do you want to be at 10 properties? Do you want to be at 15 properties? Maybe you just buy 3-4 units and you get there that much quicker. Does the debt service work? Do you have to shift your market and adopt into a different market? Not a half hour away, maybe an hour away. Okay, so building out your power team is extremely important, and speaking to people that are really seasoned and transactional in the industry. Okay, somebody that's been through the 2008 mortgage crash, somebody that understands trends, understand value. What is truly the after repair value to a property based on the enhancement you're going to do to the property? And is it going to be enhanced to be a rental? And what needs to be done to make it that much of a better enhanced rental than comparatively to a property to sell? And is your market selling, or are you seeing decreases in value? Are you seeing costs still going up for construction material? Are you using contingencies for the what ifs? Are you set up for the proper reserve base for the what ifs? Justin, good morning and welcome. Brief overview who you are, what you do, and weighing out pros versus cons. Which real estate method will you adopt?
Good morning, everybody. From Louisiana market. I'm a real estate investor. Currently at some project management roles right now, and ramping up to kind of shift gear. I'll just kind of be brief, Joe. I do think it's time to be analyzing skill sets to see where you can find yourself profitable going forward. I found myself right now. I'm trying to sell a flip. So the remarks you began this room with how slow people are with pursuing properties to live in and so on and so forth. That's absolutely true. We have had very few showings, which in this neighborhood is just indicative that people aren't really even making the attempt to buy over the past as much as they were right over the past couple of months. So that's definitely something I've been looking into. Kind of felt like might happen. Didn't expect it to be this dry as far as buyers coming through, but it's like I said, there are a couple of pivots. Obviously, leasing it out is the option, not the one I want to deal with because I'm obviously trying to go on to other things. But yeah, so that's something that I'm experiencing. But I also would like to say, as I move forward and as I look into what I've been trying to get to for a while, which is a build to rent, like some mid-sized apartments, some mid-sized units, and then do it. So, for folks that have been doing it. So that's what I'll be doing, serving clients and from those two capacities, and also just trying to take advantage of build to rent. For me, the strategy as being I'll be licensed again, and so for me, I have a couple of advantages to that strategy that I think are going to provide a better spread for me in my underwriting, and it's going to provide a safer investment for me in the 5 to 7 year hold period. While we figure out what's going to happen. So that's what I think the strategy is. And Amy made a great point that I wrote down with regards to underwriting your technology, having a whole stack of finances and underwriting for your technology, so you know and understand that you need to be keeping up with the times, just not trying to be ahead of them with regard to your properties and investments. Because you don't want to be on the back end. You don't want to be last. You got to think about the exit. You don't want to be exiting with performance. You don't want to be exiting in 2030 with 2024 performance. So definitely try to get ahead, do what you need to do. And that's spending we're doing well in 2030. But hopefully, if you're paying attention as an investor, you will be doing well because there's always somebody doing well. So those are my thoughts this morning. Just make sure to the streets to the changes being made in your market locally and underwriting.
Great stuff, Justin. Thank you as always. Here every Sundays, providing insight as one of our great moderators. In real estate, especially during times of market volatility and uncertainty, what we might term as chaos, investors often debate between strategies aimed at capitalizing on that chaos or mitigating risk. We're going to break down a little bit, navigating some of the chaos in the real estate market, contrasting some traditional to potential approaches that thrive in stability. So listen, you got to look at and accept the fact there's going to be some distressed properties coming to the market, right? Opportunistic buying. Then the high leverage strategy is 80% LTV. Does it make sense? Or 75% or 70% LTV on debt makes sense for you. And cash will always be king. The cash availability and credit availability is king. And then market timing, the speculation. Will the values hold themselves based on after repair values as you're renovating the property? 3 to 6 months on a renovation could change the value of the property anywhere between 10 and 15%. You need to think about potential oriented strategies, long term buy and hold, mid term rentals, diversifying your asset classes, okay, and value added real estate. Combining potential strategy, chaos and potential strategies, the opportunity is being leveraged correctly and the opportunity of buying and holding. Kazi, good morning and welcome. Brief overview who you are, what you do, and thoughts to weighing pros versus cons. Which real estate method will you adopt?
Oh man, Joseph. Hey, how you doing this morning, my man?
Doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, man. I love coming to these rooms, man. You have awesome conversations, and so yeah, pretty good room this morning. Just quickly, I'm Casey, based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Affordable housing developer. I do new construction and adaptive reuses. Different forms of tax credits. So I think for us, we're just going to continue to do what we're kind of doing around affordable housing space. That usually does not, at least in history, the program has been around since 1986, and that it has not slowed down. In any downfall, or if there's a downfall, government seems to put more money into this industry. Whether it's in forms of grants or low interest loans, or project based vouchers that has continue to increase 7 to 10%, annually. So another thing that we're going to kind of focus a little bit more on is a lot of adaptive reuses, buying a lot of historical buildings. When we do historical projects, you can combine or twin a lot of different forms of tax credits, to really reduce the amount of debt you need on the building. When you combine these historical tax credits with these low income housing tax credits, taxes and bonds, it allows us to maybe get into the project to almost 70 to 80% of the tax credit equity, covering the cost. So we're going to focus more on historical buildings, and even when we do new construction, also combining different forms of tax credits. Over the last few years, we maybe for new construction, we maybe used either the 4% or the 9%. Now we're going to start just combining both of those tax credits together in new construction projects to beef up the equity. We're not seeing like no huge, cost like differences in construction anymore like that. I mean, it's still, of course, higher than it was pre-COVID, but we're not seeing big swings in the market, so that's pretty good. Over the course of the year, you possibly can see a 2-3% increase, and that's very, very, very fast. But we're gonna stay on new construction like that, just putting in those two types of tax credits together to beef up the equity, and also continue to focus on faith-based relationships. That's what a lot of our pipeline and projects are right now across different states. Is working with faith-based organizations. They have access to over 30 million square foot of land across the country. They partner with developers, and they contribute their land to the deal as part of the being a project partner. So we're gonna continue to focus on that as we don't have to acquire land. So that's just one component you can kind of knock off the capital or the total budget, right? Sometimes acquisition costs can make things a little more tricky depending on the price of the acquisition. But anyway, we're just going to continue to focus on what we're doing now. That's working well. I know we do expect the pipeline is already things that's coming down the pipeline now for affordable housing, and actually some of it has happened already. So we didn't see a lot of increases in just different mechanisms, affordable housing that allow us to move a little bit quicker, or kind of close the gap a little bit faster. So just continue to focus on that. And I think that's going to work well for us. And, we kind of adapt or pivot. Well, not going to say pivot, I should say, kind of, reanalyze as we go or things change in the market. Like, whether insurance starts, interest rates, we just, always seem to just, kind of reorganize things to allow us to continue to move forward. So I'm excited about these even next, like I said, 10 years, just what's happening in the affordable housing industry, and let's just continue to focus on what we're doing and just adapt as we need.
Great stuff, Kazi. Thank you as always. As we see this housing market recovery going into 2025, what would this look like? And for the real estate agent, post NAR settlement, like what other revenue streams are you creating yourself to be a little more diversified if you're having, I would say, problematic issues with the transparency of now what you have to do with a client? I'm very concerned that the real estate the agent position is going to evolve even more so with AI. So I really think, if you're a real estate agent, I'm a licensed real estate agent, but you need to think about other revenue streams that tie into what you do as a real estate professional. Like I met a real estate professional at a CE course I taught on Thursday, and when I met her, she was a property and casualty agent. That's all she did, property and casualty. Now she's a licensed real estate agent, and she's providing property and casualty insurance. She's creating additional real estate streams because I was giving her CE on asset based lending. So I thought that was a smart move. I mean, she's diversifying herself, but not depending on one or the other. And she's providing for her clients. And the beauty of what she's doing is she has to be more transparent than ever because she's holding multiple licenses. So when you're holding multiple licenses, I think you're adopting to what's happening in front of you from a AI and prop tech perspective, and understanding that your market's going to have some ups and downs. And I think we're looking at more correction coming in 25, where you need to think about other revenue streams that tie into what you're doing as a real estate professional. Now, if you got a W-2 position, you work for the government or something like that, or it's a steady check, that's a little different. You could take a seat back and wait on the market to recover. You're not as consumed with the interest rates. It's not going to impact completely your bottom line. You notice we're not talking about interest rates that half a point drop didn't do anything for the investor. That hasn't changed their mindset. They're still aggressive as ever. And this is a investor driven podcast. We're not here to talk about how to buy your first home. We're here to about scaling and pivoting and becoming that chameleon type of real estate professional, and how to keep moving forward. All right, no matter what is thrown at us in front of us. So I think inventory is going to stay very stagnant going into 25. I think we have some concerns, and you need to understand that you're going to have to diversify and stay ahead of the game. Like from a social media perspective, we're doing a full revamp. Myself with Yardell, we're adding a whole new CRM. We're doing a whole video production. We have game plan. We're setting goals for ourselves to stay in front of people and stay relevant. So going into a fall winter market as things cool off, you really need to think about, as a real estate professional, do you have enough opportunities to provide to your client base of inquiry?
Hey Joe, I just recently I read an article last week or a study that mentioned if you use Chat GPT every day, your productivity increases by 20%. That's huge, 20%.
I mean, I leverage Chat GPT all the time, Cuzzy. I mean, I'm putting out multiple articles. I take a lot of that information and I transpose it into my thought and opinions. I post. I agree with you. I think posting 2 to 3 articles a week on different thoughts that are going through your mind is very important, not just for your brain to keep working, but to stay relevant in front of your audience. Your audience is, who you're connected with on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, who's following you and who you're talking to, staying connected. Listen, you could do all the AI in the world, but you still have to meet people and introduce yourself. Like at that event yesterday, I went up to every single person, shook their hand. My name is Joe Scarice. I'm with Lenmark Capital. I'm a direct private lender. Here's my card. I'd love to have a chat with you. Maybe not right now, but let's have a follow-up discussion. Let me send you some worksheets that I can provide to you to make you a better educated real estate investor. And hopefully we can be part of each other's power team. That was my selling point, meeting 50 people yesterday. I did it over and over and over again. Ellis, good morning. Welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning. Weighing pros versus cons. Which real estate method will you adopt?
Oh, good morning, Joseph. Good morning, all. My name is Ellis San Jose. I am a full-time investor here in Southern California. I've been doing this for about 3 decades now. And what am I going to be doing different? I'm kind of an outlier. My niche is I focus in on situations where there are title challenges and title issues in very distressed situations. So typically if we're finding the right situation, we can buy properties that have 50 to 80% upside because we're buying it at such a deep discount. I've also done some guest lecturing at UCLA where I talk about investing in debt. So, part of that is in my formula where there is a title situation. Sometimes there are opportunities to buy the debt instead of the asset at deep discounts as well. I'll be also discussing this at the 5-Star Conference. I was selected as a expert speaker panelist at the 5-Star Mortgage Conference this upcoming week in Dallas. So I'll be expounding on that as well. But I had this discussion about 12 years ago when I pivoted from my business because I was really burned out from all the different shifts in the market. So I decided, who I call my board of directors or my mentors, about focusing in on a niche that was as evergreen as possible because as you know, Joe, with your great experience in this market, there's so many different dynamics shifting here and there, and it was just too hard for me to continue the path I was on. So I said, okay, let me find a evergreen strategy that no matter what the economy is doing, no matter what all these dynamics are, the changes, because we can always count on change, right? So I wanted to find things that were evergreen regardless of what was happening, and I found that niche to be with the title challenge issue. So it's a very low volume, high margin business, and that suited my skills very well. I'm not very good at jumping around to different strategies as the market changes. So I wanted to be really, really good at one little thing. So I've been working on that niche for the last 12 years or so. So my strategy won't change a whole lot. There'll be a little bit of nuance to it where there's more creative acquisitions with, we just did a purchase where we did some seller carry financing. So the seller is going to carry financing to us because it's such a distressed situation. So it's basically kind of the two-headed monster, right? So I'm buying title issues, and I'm also doing kind of creative acquisitions of distress situations. Back to kind of the narrative politically, I think that, at least my opinion for what it's worth, I think that the national narrative federally is so far off base about trying to introduce federal intervention with rents, et cetera, because it's politically popular to blame it all on the investors and property owners. They're a very convenient target to vilify them, but the real issue here is it's a supply problem because of all the government red tape and all the different special interest groups that add to the cost of construction. That's what's really causing the supply issue. If we had a more streamlined way to provide more profitable rental units and livable units on the market, the pricing would come down. It's just, it's economics 101. So for what that's worth. So, as I said, Joe, my skill set is not in, not in looking at the little incremental marginal benefits or advantages, because that really only gets magnified with scale. So I'm not a scale guy. I like to be, like I said, very low volume, very high margin situations. So I'm enjoying this conversation. It's always good to see what other people are doing all over the country.
Yeah, it's great stuff, Ellis. I didn't realize you're going to be at the 5-Star. I did that a couple years, and I just pivoted. Not saying it's a good event for a lot of good realtors. I really want to get insight on the REO space, and you learn a lot from Fannie and Freddie players that are involved with it. I'm just pivoting. I'm doing the NAR event up in Boston, so I just kind of So but I think 5-Star serves a great purpose. I do post a lot of their articles up because I find them of relevance. And you're on the West Coast, which you're seeing the desecration of once a great state of California and what politically has.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, okay, great. You buy a distressed property in California, but this problem is it's still so inflated, and all the migration's just obviously showing that everybody wants to get the hell out of Dodge. So, are you still going to adopt, in 25 to buy more property in California to reposition, or are you looking at other markets right now?
No, I'm all in my area because if I'm buying at such deep difference, if I'm buying 20 to 50 cents on the dollar, I'll let somebody else handle the other stuff. I'll just if it gets too problematic to hold it, I'll just I'll give it to the next guy. Because there's plenty of buyers that
Yeah.
if I can deliver it at that discount. But I agree. There's so many headwinds. I mean, there's another proposition about extending rent control to single family homes, and I'm just like, come on. What's
Yeah, but this is the thing. Okay, so yeah, but is that going to be implemented to the institutions that are building out apartment living at all these malls throughout the country over the next 10 years? So, okay, fine. If you're going to mandate the small landlord, are you going to mandate the institutions as well? I again, it's yet to be seen, but I can tell you in Philadelphia for a fact, they're going toward mandatory low income housing in all the apartment buildings throughout the city over time. That's coming, whether you like it or not. And if you live in the loft and you're paying top dollar, somebody down in the second or third, fifth floor is paying a lot less than you through the government channels. So I don't know how fair that is. I don't feel. I mean, I like a Class A building. Now you're forcing that landlord to substantiate a lesser paying tenant in there because there's a housing shortage. Well, there should be affordability made by the Fed and the state to be able to make those type of housing affordability opportunities. Like right now, PHA in Philadelphia is buying their own properties. They're buying properties. I mean, they're slower in buying, but they're the competition. They're going after apartment buildings and creating low income housing for their vouchers. Why aren't other cities doing that?
Right. I mean, it all boils down to with all these policies, is it going to be profitable? Because if it's not profitable, I mean, if you start squeezing the margins, why would you ever want to build anything? And yeah, I'll put in affordable units as long as I can, bottom line make my spread. If I can, with all the government intervention and low income requirements, if I can fit all that in and still develop it and still make money, yeah, I'll do it. But it's becoming less and less because they're squeezing so many parts of the pie. They don't get it, right? The government doesn't get it. They think that, oh, look what we're doing to squeeze evil landlords. Well, when the landlords and the builders and the developers start saying, hey, you know what? I think I'm not going to build here anymore. It's just too stupid, right? They'll move on, and that's the elephant in the room, and it's so frustrating because I've gotten with many political venues where I've said this, and it's not a popular opinion, but it's the truth as I see it. It's economics 101. You take the profit out of it. Nobody, why would I build it as a charitable act? Yeah, and lose money. That's not going to happen.
No, I get it.
In Minnesota, guys, I heard about that. Minnesota trying to implement rent control.
Well, Minnesota's a whole nother. Yeah, Minnesota's a whole nother. Yeah,
economics 101, and the politicians refuse to recognize that. I think that all these policymakers should be required to have salary control, right?
Yeah.
Say, hey, guess what? We need to reduce costs. We're going to cut your salary in half, and then we're also going to limit how much it can increase. Oh, I don't care about inflation. This is going to help the whole community if we only give you a 3% increase every year. I think they might get it if we did it that way, but of course, very unpopular opinion because people want to feel good. They don't want to be told the truth.
Well, I'm a fan of small government. I'm not a fan of big government, and I would agree with you, Ellis. And I think we need to get back to more small government. I think we need to get to a place where there's freedom for opportunity, where we're not taking away rights of individuals. But I think there has to be we have to get our costs down to be able to adopt new goals for ourselves as real estate professionals going into next year. Like the cost of goods is 30% different than 4 years ago. That's a fact. You can make it any way you want. You can cut it up any different way, whatever party you want to fall in. At the end of the day, you need to work harder to be able to afford to live and breathe now than 4 years ago. And that's a fact. So whatever direction you go as a real estate professional, you better figure out a game plan right now, today, for your first and second quarter in 2025. And what does that look like? And how are you going to adopt that as a real estate professional? Joe, I want to get some final thoughts from you on our discussion this morning. Which methods will you adopt in real estate? Joe Martella?
Great conversation today, Joe. A lot of listen, like you said, this isn't for the beginners at heart, right? This is a more of a 201 than a 101 on real estate investing and talking about the economy and where it's going. So really, really good conversation about government involvement, the road that we're going for, what the market looks like, and how investors really manage the market and keep an eye on it and adjust accordingly. So really good conversation. Some great nuggets in here.
Thanks, Joe. Amy, your final thoughts to pros versus cons. Methods will you adopt in 2025?
Great room, Joe. It's been awesome. There'll be more and more technology that'll come out will change the game for investors, whether they're large or small. My parting thoughts would be just keep abreast of what those are. I mean, there's things like Lofty AI, which allows you fractionalization of real estate will become a trend. So take a look at that. So if you don't have a whole lot of money and you want to invest like $1,000 here or there are platforms out there that will do that, and maybe that's how you start instead of becoming. A lot of people when they started, they became a wholesaler, and that's the way they could do it with very little cash. Well, there'll be other ways to build it up, but eventually you don't want to stay there. Eventually you want to be a buy and hold investor just because that's how you create wealth. So, start someplace that, hopefully you can scale and grow to where it makes a real difference for your family, for sure.
Great.
Thanks. It's a great room.
Great room today. Great subject. We'll be back here every Saturday and Sunday morning. Saturday mornings, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sunday mornings, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'd like to thank our sponsors, MB Capital, Percatech, Realty 411, and Lenmark. We're here to provide education, networking, and strategy. And I want to thank everybody for a very engaged room this morning, calling in from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, from the Like-Minded Real Estate Investors Summit. I'll be at various events this fall. Love to meet up with every single one of you, whether for coffee, for lunch, or at a networking event. And my quote this morning: don't be impressed by money, followers, degrees, and titles. Be impressed by kindness, integrity, humility, and generosity. Everybody have a beautiful week. I'll see you next weekend, and I'll be ending the room in the next 30 seconds. Thank you.